Welcome to Alaska Weather. This is Holloway from the National Weather Service for January 19th, 2023. A couple options, phone menu system, and out on the World Wide Web, weather.gov/Alaska. Lastly, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please email us. For the watch warnings and advisories out for the state, not a whole lot going on this afternoon. We do have a winter weather advisory out until 6 p.m. for the northwest coast, and that's for basically blowing and drifting snow. Also down here in the passes of the Panhandle, Chilkoot and White, we have an advisory out for accumulating snow up to 5 inches. And that's again through this evening. Looking at on the satellite image, you can see a low pressure system in the Gulf of Alaska driving some rain and snow showers through the Panhandle back across much of the North Gulf Coast and into the southeast interior. We also have some lingering snow showers along the western interior, west coast, and out through the northwest coast as well. And lastly, of note is the next system showing up west of the Aleutians, otherwise some lingering snow showers through much of the Bering Sea. And again, with that next system approaching the western Aleutians. For today's weather, looking at a 978 millibar low with moderate to heavy rain driving into the coast of Alaska. I did see some precipitation estimates over the last 12 hours, anywhere between 1/2 to 1 inch across the Panhandle, but otherwise nothing too excessive in that area of the state. But otherwise, we have some snow showers further inland and across the coastal mountains, and that spreads over across the southern mainland down through the Bristol Bay region. And again, associated with that weak trough along the western mainland, driving some snow showers out that way. And lastly, out there in the western Aleutians, a 994 millibar low with a weak trough, driving some snow showers through much of the Bering. For tonight's weather, that weakening low near Kodiak Island. Otherwise, the next low comes in for tonight, 981 millibar low and another occluder front, driving some moderate heavy rain once again. But we do not currently have any watch warnings advisory associated with this system tonight, but look out for that as we move in there. Look for some watch warnings and advisories associated with that later tonight or tomorrow morning. But otherwise, we have some snow showers again across the coastal mountains and across much of the southern mainland, some lingering fog along the Arctic coast, and some snow showers through much of the Bering Sea, again associated with the next system showing up there with an occluder front and 976 millibar low out there in just south of the western Aleutians. For Friday's weather, that low spins up to a 967 millibar low, an occluder front and triple point, warm front, cold front. And again, with some moderate to heavy rain across the Panhandle, coastal areas of the Gulf, and also some snow showers across the coastal mountains and southern mainland, and over into much of the southwest portion of the mainland. Mixed precipitation through much of the Gulf region. Also some snow showers across the Bering Sea with that low over there in the Aleutians, a 967 millibar low and an occluder front. Mixed precipitation down across much of the western and central Aleutians. And again, that's for Friday. And lastly, we're going to be looking at some lingering fog along the Arctic coast. For Saturday's weather, that low now weakening to 1,004 millibars in the Gulf of Alaska, lingering rain showers at the coastal locations, snow showers further inland across the Panhandle into the southeast interior, and a good chance of pretty good snowfall across the eastern mainland with a weakening low in the interior, 1,013 millibars there, and that snow showers would also be noted across the north slope with that system. And lastly, the other Aleutian low, now a 980 millibar low and a occluder front, snow showers through much of the Bering Sea, mixed precipitation through much of the western and central Aleutians. For low temperatures, Friday morning looking at 39 for Ketchikan, 41 in Sitka, 35 in Juneau, 35 in Yakutat, 29 in Valdez, 22 in Anchorage, 31 in Kodiak, -8 McGrath, 19 in King Salmon, and 19 in Talkeetna. High temperatures Friday afternoon, looking at 43 there in Ketchikan, 44 in Sitka, 38 in Juneau, 38 in Haines, 37 in Yakutat, 36 in Valdez, 29 in Anchorage, 35 in Homer, 35 in Kodiak, 24 in King Salmon, 4 up there in McGrath, and 29 in Talkeetna. For low temperatures Saturday morning, looking at 36 there in Ketchikan, 38 in Sitka, 34 in Juneau, 31 in Yakutat, 26 in Valdez, 23 in Anchorage, 26 in Homer, 24 in Kodiak, 6 in King Salmon, -9 in McGrath, and 23 in Talkeetna. High temperatures Saturday afternoon, looking at 43 in Sitka, 38 in Juneau, 39 in Yakutat, 36 in Valdez, 29 in Anchorage, 30 in Homer, 33 in Kodiak, 14 in King Salmon, -1 in McGrath, and 27 in Talkeetna. Back across the interior and North Slope, looking at -8 in Fairbanks, Northway -15, 3 in Eagle, -12 in Fort Yukon, -7 in Nanatucket Pass, -12 in Ukiavik, -6 in Point Hope, -16 in Nome, -8 in Galena, -7 in Tanana. High temperatures Friday afternoon, looking at 6 in Fairbanks, 1 in Northway, 10 in Eagle, -8 in Fort Yukon, 0 in Nanatucket Pass, -7 in Ukiavik, -4 in Point Hope, -1 in Nome, 0 in Galena, 1 in Tanana. For low temperature Saturday morning, looking at -1 in Fairbanks, -1 in Northway, 4 in Eagle, -13 in Fort Yukon, -7 in Nanatucket Pass, -11 in Ukiavik, -15 in Point Hope, -17 in Nome, -16 in Galena, -6 in Tanana. Then for high temperatures Saturday afternoon, looking at 2 in Fairbanks, 7 in Northway, Eagle 8, Fort Yukon 3, Nanatucket Pass -6, -8 in Ukiavik, -13 in Point Hope, -13 in Nome, -8 in Galena, -2 in Tanana. Down through the southwest, Alaska Peninsula and Aleutians for low temperatures Friday morning, looking at -2 in Bethel, 3 in Antioch, 18 in Dillingham, Cold Bay 22, Dutch Harbor 25, Shemya 29, 13 in St. Paul. For high temperatures Friday afternoon, 2 in Bethel, 7 in Antioch, 21 in Dillingham, 26 in Cold Bay, 31 in Dutch Harbor, 35 in Shemya, St. Paul 20. For low temperatures Saturday morning, looking at -13 in Bethel, -12 in Antioch, 1 in Dillingham, 18 in Cold Bay, 27 in Dutch Harbor, 32 in Shemya, 17 in St. Paul. For high temperatures Saturday afternoon, looking at -4 in Bethel, -3 in Antioch, 10 in Dillingham, 29 in Cold Bay, Dutch Harbor, 35, 34 in Shemya, 26 in St. Paul. For the CPC temperature outlook for January 25th through January 29th, looking at above normal tilts across much of the southern mainland and into the interior. And that also extends down to the Bristol Bay region, Kodiak Island, over into the Panhandle as well. And again, for the Arctic coast and North Slope, looking at near normal tilts there, again, for CPC's outlook from 6 to 10 days, January 25th through 29th. For the precipitation from CPC 6 to 10 day time period from January 25th through January 29th, looking at above normal tilts across the entire state with enhanced options or possibilities across much of the northwest and western interior. and that extends down through most of the rest of the mainland and even into the Panhandle, with above normal tilts across the state, and even in Anchorage with 39% chance of above normal tilts, leaning towards much above normal across much of the state, but again, enhanced possibilities across the northwest part of the state.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Taking a look at the aviation forecast, starting with flying weather on Friday morning. We're going to be dealing with low pressure in the Gulf of Alaska over the next couple days. It'll be driving some IFR conditions through much of the Gulf region, including the Panhandle over into the Alaska Peninsula, otherwise marginal conditions showing up in the Bering Sea, up along the west coast and Arctic coast as well. Otherwise, generally through the interior, going to see some VFR conditions there. Flying weather for Friday afternoon, looking continued IFR conditions through much of the Gulf into the Panhandle, over into southern Cook Inlet and Kodiak Island, over into Bristol Bay, and out there in the Aleutians. The next low comes in, bringing some IFR conditions out that way. Otherwise, marginal conditions through much of the Bering Sea, up along the west coast and Arctic coast. For Saturday morning flying weather, continued IFR conditions in portions of the Gulf now, and improving conditions down along the Panhandle, with marginal conditions in the central and northern Panhandle. Otherwise, IFR conditions in the interior along the Alaska Range, and IFR conditions again with that low as it moves into the Bering Sea, and some improving conditions down along the southwest and west coast, and marginal conditions up along the Arctic coast and North Slope. For flying weather Saturday afternoon, some IFR conditions in the interior up along the eastern Brooks Range in North Slope there. Otherwise, IFR conditions down through the Aleutians, improving conditions through much of south central and southwest, and IFR conditions again across the Panhandle. Past conditions for Friday, looking at Anaktuvuk and Adigan being VFR conditions there. For Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal, but I did think that Merrill could be in VFR, but I went with marginal just to be safe, but it could be better than that. Rainy, marginal, improving to VFR. Windy, VFR. Isabel, VFR as well. Mintast, I went for VFR conditions, but you could see some marginal conditions on the south entrance. And Tanita, marginal conditions there. Down in Portage, IFR conditions generally, but as you poke into the eastern entrance, you could see some marginal conditions. And then Chilkoot and White, IFR conditions down there. For freezing levels Friday morning, surface freezing level cutting across the southern Bering Sea, over into south central and into the British Columbia area. Otherwise, elevated freezing levels anywhere between 2,000 and 6,000 feet, showing up just south or across the Panhandle, again for Friday morning. Icing for Friday, looking at, let's start across the west coast there, above 3,000 feet with isolated moderate. As you get into the Gulf region with that low pressure activity, we're going to see anywhere between 5,000 and 10,000 feet of isolated moderate to considerable moderate in some of those areas, again with that low pressure systems moving through there. Otherwise, that other low pressure system out there in the Aleutians bringing isolated to considerable moderate conditions out there between 4,000 and 8,000 feet. For the jet stream on Friday, low pressure systems up there in extreme eastern Russia, down in the Gulf. We have some 110 to 130 knot winds coming in and southerly flashing across the Panhandle and across much of the state, anywhere between 40 to 45 along the coast region, and then as you get into the interior, 100 knots picks up there from the westerly direction, and then strong winds across much of the Aleutians. For 9,000 foot winds on Friday, again, low pressure systems, the one out there in Aleutians and the Gulf and eastern Russia. One in the Gulf, we could see anywhere between 80, 70 knots coming into the Gulf region in a southerly fashion, again, counterclockwise flow with that low pressure system. And again, northerly winds across the eastern Bering, cutting across the Alaska Peninsula, up to 35 knots there. And again, strong southerly winds across the central and western Aleutians, anywhere between 60 and 65 knots there. Otherwise, generally across the mainland, light and variable. For 3,000-foot winds on Friday, again, low pressure system in the Gulf, driving southerly winds into the Panhandle, 70 knots there, and more easterly as you get into the northern Gulf. Near the coast, 45 knots there, light and variable across much of the mainland. And again, that low pressure system driving southerly winds out there in the Aleutians, anywhere between 50 and 60 knots out there. Lastly, for turbulence, looking at surface to 8,000 feet, could see some isolated severe down there in the Panhandle, otherwise surface to 4,000 feet in the southern Cook Inlet, Kodiak Island.
Hey, Starshines, Trace here. Stargazing typically happens at night, but right now you can look at some planet gazing if you pull yourself out of bed bright and early. Let's hit the twilight at 6:30 a.m., hopefully with that morning beverage. If you look southeast at the growing glow, you should see a beautiful crescent moon, and it should have some good earth shine too, meaning the light reflecting off the earth is shining back on the moon, illuminating it like a ball hanging in the sky. Just below and slightly to the left is Antares, one of the brightest stars in the sky, and the heart of Scorpius the Scorpion, and about 45 minutes later you should be able to spot Mercury. It rises very close to the sun most of the year, except at the edges of its orbit called elongation, which happens later this month. Enjoy the morning stargazing and keep looking up.
Been to the beach and noticed litter like plastic bottles or foam takeout containers on the sand? Or maybe you've been to a river or bay where there's a bag or a car tire stuck in the mud on the shore, or a bunch of deflated balloons that say happy birthday floating in the water? All of that junk in the water or on the shoreline is considered marine debris. It's anything solid and man-made in the ocean or Great Lakes that is not supposed to be there. And anything people use every day can become marine debris if they don't dispose of it properly. And I mean anything. The most common items we find when we do shoreline cleanups are plastics. But we also find rubber, cloth, glass, metal, and paper litter. Sometimes the debris is so tiny, like a plastic microbead from your face wash, that you can barely see it in the water. Marine debris is more than just trash in the ocean. Sometimes fishers lose their gear like fishing traps, nets, or fishing line, and it continues to drift through the water, catching animals for a long time. We call that derelict fishing gear, and it's marine debris. Have you ever seen an old boat left behind on a shoreline? Abandoned and derelict vessels are also marine debris. So let's review. Anything we use every day can become marine debris if we don't dispose of it properly or if it goes into the water by accident. Marine debris can be very small or can be very big, and anything in between. But most importantly, marine debris is one of the biggest pollution problems facing the world's oceans and waterways today.
How does marine debris impact the ocean, animals, and me? Would you want to swim in a beach littered with trash? Of course not. And the animals who live in the ocean don't either. The difference is, they don't have a choice. Marine species often get tangled in debris, from fishing nets to six-pack rings. If they get caught, they could get injured or even die. And even if they don't get entangled, many animals mistake plastic debris for food and eat it. This fills their stomach with junk they can't digest. Debris can also damage important habitats, like coral reefs, by breaking or smothering them. Corals serve as the base of the marine ecosystem, and impacts here can be felt all the way to you and me. Plus, plastics have harmful chemicals in them. Fish eat plastic, we eat fish. The question is, can those chemicals harm us? Marine debris also hurts the economy. It costs a lot of money to clean up, and people don't want to go to dirty beaches. Boats and ships could run into large pieces of debris too, or get their propellers tangled. We need the ocean and everything in it, and the ocean needs us to keep it free of debris. What can we do about marine debris?
A lot of the trash that's in our ocean is plastic.
And that marine debris is hurting our environment, economy, and health.
The problem will only get worse.
Unless we change the way we consume and dispose of products. There are solutions.
And together, we can prevent litter from ending up in the ocean. Some people might say,
Well, I'm just one person, so I can't make a difference.
but that's just not true.
If each person who creates trash, and that's just about everyone, took action, it would add up to a whole lot of change.
So what can we do?
Well, the ultimate solution is prevention. And we need to keep that as our highest priority.
We can reduce, reuse, and recycle to keep debris out of the ocean in the first place.
You can bring your own shopping bag, drink out of a reusable bottle, and participate in things like a shoreline cleanup.
Join a group cleaning up the beach, or grab some friends and clean up your street. It's easy.
Be more conscious of how many disposable plastic items you're using. And if you do,
Where are you putting it? In the trash can? Whoops. Or in the recycling bin?
so here's the challenge. The next time you finish using a throwaway item, a bag, a bottle, or utensil, answer the question, where is this going? Because ultimately, when you throw stuff away, there really is no away. It has to go somewhere.
So keep asking yourself this important question.
How will you keep your trash from becoming marine debris?
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Taking a look at the marine forecast, starting with the ice edge. Ice edge is showing up there near St. Matthew Island and back across over into Bristol Bay. Also some ice over there in Cook Inlet region. Looking at the ice image, I stole this from the ice desk today. They showed me that some ice piling up through the Bering Strait there against St. Lawrence Island, about 65 miles worth of ice piling up there over the last week. Kind of a neat photograph or image. What's the forecast for southeast on Friday? Winds generally from a southeast direction, 20 to 35 with seas as high as 19 feet. So look for small craft advisory there on Friday. For the outside waters, winds generally from a southerly direction, 35 to 45 with seas as high as 25 feet. So look for small craft or gale there on Friday. And then for Saturday, winds inside waters generally from a southerly direction, 20 to 25 with seas as high as 5 feet. And then for the outside waters, winds generally from a southerly direction up to 25 with seas as high as 22 feet. So again, look for small craft advisory there on Saturday. For Friday's marine forecast for South Central, for the Gulf region, winds generally from a southeasterly direction, 25 to 30 with seas as high as 15 feet. So look for small craft advisory there on Friday. And then for the Cook Inlet region, winds generally from a northerly direction, 15 to 30 with seas as high as 7 feet. So again, look for a small craft advisory there on Friday. And then for Saturday, for the Gulf region, winds generally from a northeasterly direction, 20 to 35 with seas as high as 18 feet. And then for the Cook Inlet region, winds generally from a northerly direction, 15 to 35 with seas as high as 9 feet there in the Kamishak Bay region. For Friday's marine forecast, Kodiak Island and Alaska Peninsula, winds around Kodiak Island from a northwesterly direction, 30 to 40 with seas as high as 12 feet. For the Alaska Peninsula south side, looking at winds generally from the northwest at 30 with seas as high as 9 feet. And then for the north side of Alaska Peninsula, winds generally from a northwesterly direction up to 30 with seas as high as 8 feet. For Saturday's marine forecast, Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, winds around Kodiak Island looking like they're going to be out of the northeast at 30 30 with seas as high as 15 feet, so small craft advisory there likely on Saturday. Southside Alaska Peninsula, winds generally from the east at 45 with seas as high as 18 feet. And then for the Northside Alaska Peninsula, winds generally from the northeast at 35 to 40 with seas as high as 16 feet. For Aleutian Chain, winds generally from a easterly direction 20 to 45 with seas as high as 22 feet between Adak and Kiska. So look for gales or small craft advisory there on Friday. And then for Saturday, winds continue out of the east at 40 to 50 with seas as high as 27 feet. So look for gales or stronger there on Saturday. For Friday's marine forecast for West Coast, winds only from the north at 15 to 20 with seas as high as 5 feet there near the Pribs. And for Saturday, winds continue out of the north at 20 to 45 with seas as high as 19 feet around the Pribilofs. And then for the coast, winds generally from the east at 10 to 15. Then down through the Chukchi Sea area, looking at winds generally from a variable direction of 20 down through the Bering Strait, winds from the west at 15 to 20. And then for Saturday, along the Beaufort Sea coast, winds from the west at 10 to 15. Down to the Chukchi Sea coast, winds from the west as well, up to 20. And same for the Bering Strait region, with winds generally out of the west at 20 to 25. For tonight's weather, looking at a low pressure system, 981 millibar low in the Gulf of Alaska, driving some mixed precipitation in the Gulf of Alaska, moderate to heavy rain along the coastal areas, and snow showers further inland along the coast, and mountainous areas along the southern inland into the Panhandle as well. And then we also have some fog along the Arctic coast, and another low pressure system out there in the Aleutians with an occluded front, mixed precipitation across central and western Aleutians, with snow showers through much of the Bering Sea. And then for Friday's weather, that low pressure system now spinning up to a 967 millibar low with occluded front, triple point, and moderate to heavy rain at the lower elevations, and snow showers further inland and mountainous areas of the southern mainland and coastal mountains.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.